Hey everyone, in this video, now we've got the front and the rear carbon door cards in from Rallytech, it's time to start attacking the rear seat delete. So here is our rear divider, whatever you want to call it, I'm not sure, that goes there. And then over here, we've got our parcel shelf, which is self-explanatory, which is a parcel shelf. And then the third piece of the puzzle, which goes there, the rear bench, that is with Daniel Overlicks because it needed a bit of repair to the lacquer / resin from the postage, and also because it slipped off the back of the Spider onto the floor and cracked itself. So yeah, what we're going to do is we will first of all, because I've got the parts here, we're going to attack this item, and then we're going to attack the parcel shelf, which should hopefully be very easy. I've also ordered some rubber spacers, rubber washers, which I might employ at some point. But yeah, apologies that I'm wearing my hood, and apologies if the video is shaky. It is a wonderfully toasty 8 degrees at the moment in the garage. I've put the heater on, but I am freezing my tits off. Not pleasant, can't feel my fingers, which isn't great when you're working with power tools. Anyway, this is what we're going to tackle first. So this item here, it already has these countersunk kind of marks in it where holes can be made. It's got 9 holes in total, so I'm going to drill those out, and then we can drop it in the car, and we can then mark up where those holes are on the car. And then I'm going to use screws. Maybe I'll use some clips, maybe I'll use some Velcro. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I'm definitely going to use screws to have it stay the same kind of approach and technique as the door cards, which obviously use clips, they use screws, and I want to keep everything the same because, you know, that's how my brain works. So yeah, let's drill the holes and then let's put it in the car and see how it looks. Okay, got the preliminary holes drilled, and I've also just trimmed the sides a little bit because they foul, because I already test fitted this, of course, I had to. They foul a little bit on some of the wires, I'll show you. But let's just drop it into the car, and then we can see where these holes kind of line up. I've not drilled out the 2 holes either side of the center hole because when I looked at the car, there's no holes there anyway, so I'm thinking maybe I don't need all the holes cut. So let us see, shall we? Okay, so with the card in place, I've marked up now the holes with the pen where they need to be. Some of the holes line up, some of them do not. So we can get it back out of the car now and then make the holes in the car that correspond to the card holes.
A few moments later.
Okay, I've cut the holes out now, and I've cut them so they will take the square pegs again. So just need to drop the pegs in place, and then we can hopefully get the rear panel back in and kind of screwed up and sort of see how it fits. Okay, so there we go. Trying to find a good angle. Obviously you can't see Jack because we're in a cave, but all the screws are in, all the clips sit okay. Yeah, that's kind of it. Job done really for that panel. Again, apologies, I look like ET with my hood on. Need to, on my car, a bit different to most other people's cars, probably, because I've got a roll cage, and the roll cage, the arms, the legs, go through to the strut tops on the rear. So I need to make holes, sadly, in my beautiful carbon panel, which I really don't want to do, but there you go. So I will go and do that separate to this video. In this video, I'll just focus on getting it in the car, as if there's no roll cage in the back. So the next thing we can do is to focus on the rear parcel shelf and kind of get that piece into place. I've dug out my original parcel shelf here. I thought I'd lost it, but I found it, and I'm glad I did, because the original solution is these holders for these 4 clips here is on the back side, and these are just glued on to this piece of MDF, whatever you want to call it here, like this compressed cardboard, and then there's 2 holes here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically knock those 4 off and then work out the positions on the carbon piece and then essentially glue them into place, make the 2 holes if I want to, and that should be the rear parcel shelf done. Okay, so I've got the clips off now and I've cleaned them and sanded them down. This is the best way to show you. So you've got 1, 2, black one there, 3, and if you can see it there, number 4. So they are now in place on the car because I'm going to do the same sort of thing that I did with the door cards, which is to fit spacers onto the panel and then glue onto those spacers and then fit the part in the car and tape it down. That is my solution. So here is our panel, and I've put 25mm Velcro all around the edges to try and limit vibration and stop it rubbing on the rear seat delete divider thing. But these are our spacers here, 4 of them. So I've already marked up where they need to go, little red dots. So I will get gluing them in place now, and then we can hopefully, once they've set, get glue on them and then get them in the car. And then what I'll do after that is I will then work out where the holes are for the 2 kind of fir tree clips that go through and whether or not I'm going to bother with them. I think I am, just to keep it original, but well, original style. So anyway, yeah, glue.
Several days later.
Okay, several days, which is my new saying, have now passed, and our epoxy is all nice and set, all looking good. We've got our little marks here that I've made for the holes, 6.5mm holes for these little Chinese special fir trees, and they correspond with these 2 holes here. You can see the little raised holes there and there. And the reason why I'm going to cut holes in the carbon is because it's the OEM solution. If you look at the original parcel shelf here we have the holes. So it's the OEM solution, so I kind of like that fact that I want to keep it the same. But also because the original clips, these ones here, because they are a little bit higher, a little bit lower than they should be, higher, lower, sound like the price is right, because they aren't quite snug fitting with the parcel shelf itself, same with the original one, the fir trees are going to kind of clamp it into place, so while the epoxy is setting, it's going to help with that, and it's just going to kind of add a bit of security to it. So let's get drilling those holes. I hate drilling holes with carbon fibre, but let's drill the holes in the carbon and then let's get the shelf onto the car and get it glued in, and yeah, that should be it for the parcel shelf itself.
Years later.
Okay, so many days have passed now because Christmas has been in the way and my children have been visiting me here in Sweden, so I've not been able to kind of do more since putting the parcel shelf in place. So everything is now set there, clearly. So let's have a look at the parcel shelf before we move on to the rear bench. Right, how is it looking? Apologies again if it's dark, but you can kind of see that it's looking pretty good. It's all looking like factory in my opinion, which is what I wanted to do, so I'm happy with that. But obviously that wasn't a difficult job to do. The door cards were way more difficult. The rear divide has also been pretty straightforward so far, and the rear bench is probably going to be the most difficult bit. We will see. That is now back from Daniel, all looking good. He's done a great job with that, repairing the lacquer. So now we can crack on with that. I have kind of got an idea of what I'm going to do, but as with a lot of these things, I'm going to kind of find my way with it. I've had some help from some of the guys on Instagram who've already got this kind of rear seat delete in place in their cars about how they've done it with the wiring and so on. So we'll see if I do the same approach or try something different. But what I need to do is remove the battery wire out of the way. I'll just remove the carpet, pull it forward a little bit just to get the rear bench flush, and I'm hoping I've removed the protector from the wiring there on that side, that's now in the boot. I just need to get the fuel pump wiring out of the way there so we can get the bench in flush. And then Mitsubishi, conveniently, has left these kind of anchor points for screws in place in the body already. So I'm assuming they're the same on both sides because left-hand drive cars will have the wiring loom on this side. That's what I'm thinking. So I think I'm going to use like 2 or 3 of those holes to secure the rear bench in place again, because it's kind of factory in my opinion. So let us get the fuel pump wiring out the way, and then let's put that rear bench in and see how it looks. Okay, so we are done now. Got the fuel wires taped up there out the way, got these 2 plugs undone, and I'll leave that panel off for now, it doesn't matter. And I've also moved the battery cable out the way a little bit. Obviously here's our panel to go in. It's really confusing because on some of the photos I've seen that people have kindly sent me, some people have the wire going over the top of the panel, some people have the wire going underneath the panel, and I can't figure out. The people that have got the wiring going above the panel have no carpet, so that's a bit tricky for me because I have carpet. But for the people that are running it under the panel, I can't figure out how they're running it under the panel because there's no space and it's really tight. So it's kind of like so maybe they've changed the design or something, I don't know, but yeah, it's not that simple, I don't think. Well, it doesn't seem that simple, but I'll get the panel in now and then you can see what I mean, and we can see how we can kind of run the wiring and see what can be done. But yeah. Right, so I've got the plastic back in now, like the little sill guards, and the edging is in place, and the edging basically comes over the top of the lip of this bottom panel, and then obviously this sill protector that goes over the top also of the panel. But you can see, I mean, that is in place now, and obviously when I've got screws in there it's going to hold it down better, and I'm going to have to put spacers underneath the screws because pulling it down fully is going to put too much strain on the screws, I think, in the plastic, and it's also going to put too much strain on the carbon itself, so I'm going to have to space them out, but that's something I can sort out, I'm sure. But yeah, this side you can see is like the main issue, which is all the wiring pulled out of the way. I cannot see how that wiring fits underneath there. It's a bit of a dilemma. So I'm going to go off while SpongeBob does something and try and work out the best solution, and hopefully come back in a sec with this is how you need to do it, or this is how I need to do it at least, and then start implementing that solution. So yeah.
2,000 years later.
I've sussed it, finally. I think I've sussed it. Anyway, I've made a bit of progress with the passenger side, which is the easier side, of course, with the battery cable. So what have I done? Well, the cable is running over the top, if you can see it, of the bench. Hello camera. So basically what I've done is I've cut a hole in the carpet, put a grommet in there, and I will obviously seal that in better, and then the cable is going to run up along here like that. I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, 4 holes to match the holes in the body of the car to hold the bench in place basically. And to do that I've had to remove the rear carpet kind of corners that go, well, basically tidy up where the rear seat corner ends, and I've also had to remove the plastic clips that go over the sort of top of the sill on the body of the seam. I've had to remove those both sides just to give me a bit more room and a bit more flexibility with the carpet, but they're only stapled in, so it's very easy to remove. Just basically undo the staples and then pull them out. So this is the messy side. Obviously I've not drilled the holes yet, but the plan is to do the same thing on this side and make a nice hole sort of here-ish, which we'll do on camera, and then run the wires up and over here like this, down there and back, and utilise this, I think, somehow, which is the original kind of shroud there. Possibly, maybe I end up not using that, but my thought right now this second is to modify that, use it, and to paint it black so it doesn't stand out as much. So anyway, I think the next thing we need to do now is we need to get making the hole on the driver's side so we can fit the wires through. I will off camera fix the fuel lines because obviously most people won't have that issue. I will fix that off camera, and then let's get on with getting that hole made and the grommet in place, hopefully if we've got a big enough grommet, and then we can kind of have the wires through and the carpet in place, and then we can see what it looked like before we make the holes in the bench. Okay, so there we go, got our grommet here, and this is our hole cut now in the carpet. And if we just put the cable through the carpet like that, then I'm not going to finalise this obviously, then we just need to put our grommet, also hard doing it with one hand, round the wiring like that, and then basically that's going to be like the passenger side, that's going to fit flush with the carpet, kind of like that. And that is our solution. Obviously I need to kind of tidy this up, but now that is sort of done, I need to make the holes in the panel to mount it to the body of the car. So we're going to make 4 holes each side, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the same on the other side. And then we can get it in, and then I can work out the trunking and stuff and the wiring after that. So I am going to go and do that off camera because that's probably going to be a bit of a painstaking process. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to put screws into those holes, put a blob of paint on the screws, and then put the panel in place and see where the marks are and hope I get it right. But yeah, I'll go and do that, and then we'll come back after SpongeBob again, and hopefully we can get our panel dropped into place, and then we can kind of see how it's going to look, even though the wiring's not finalised, and then obviously we can sort the wiring out.
Eventually.
There we go, holes made, 6mm holes, 4 each side, and I've obviously test fitted and everything fits okay. This took ages and it was really nerve-wracking because it's completely blind and in a bad place, and what I ended up doing was cutting down some pot rivets and sinking them into the screw holes, and then putting a blob of paint on the top of the pot rivet end, and then basically very gently putting the panel in and pressing it to find the red marks, and then measuring it as well, just taking both things and taking the average from both, and kind of worked okay, but not an enjoyable job. That one was. So anyway, now that that's done, we can drop it in the car quick, get it screwed down, and then we can kind of go from there and look at the wiring. There you go, all screwed in, looking okay, both sides. As is always the case, one side was easier than the other, and the passenger side was the side I did first. Screwed it up a little bit, but driver's side, no problems because I already knew what I was doing. But now we've done that, we can start looking at the wiring and this kind of chunking here. And I still need to sort out my fuel pump lines, which are there. So I'm going to do that off camera, and as per usual, we're going to get a SpongeBob, come back when I hopefully have it worked out a bit more than it is, and then obviously I can explain it, and then we can get the solution into place, and we should be pretty much done.
One eternity later.
Just like that, we are back. Say just like that. For you it's been a SpongeBob, for me it's been about a month since the last clip. Reason why it's taken so long is when I was tidying up the wiring, which in itself took a while, I traced the wiring back to the fuel pump relay to trunk it and make it all nice and tidy, and I noticed that the fuel pump relay fuse had melted the plastic, and then I kind of traced it a bit further and noticed that some of the connectors were a bit melted between the battery and the relay and the fuel pump. Did some research and found out that the Hellcat fuel pump that's in this car, 535 litres an hour, crazy fuel pump, draws at most about 26-ish amps. So that means you need 10 gauge wire, learning this as I go, which I did not have. So I've had to rewire everything from the battery to the fuel pump. So that's why it's taken so long. But we are now in a decent position, I think. So wiring is all nice and tidy and nice and clean, and I've made sure everything works. This here, this wire, this is something that probably you won't have. This is the fuel pump wiring. So this is the trigger and the power to the fuel pump. And this is a DTP Deutsche connector that's rated at 25 amps. So I thought it'd be nice to sort of use this. This is also painted black, the plastic trunking, 2 pieces. So it kind of sits and fits better in with the carbon. But I thought it'd be nice, you'll see when we fit it, that this will fit into this housing here, because this used to have the earth, I think it was the earth to the AYC, which I've now kind of tidied away under there and tidied back there. So yeah, that was the solution that I came up with. So now we can get that in, get things tightened up, just get the bits of plastic trim up there back in place, and then that is it. We are done. And we are done. If the camera lightens up a little bit, you can see all sort of tidied here, clipped into place, trim back in place. We've got our plastic back in place there, all good. And then as good as we can get it with this side, go around to the other side and see it, but with the black trunking, all done and dusted. Took way longer than I thought because of the issues with the fuel pump relay and the wiring in general. But yeah, all in all, not such a bad job. Parcel shelf, very straightforward. That's like stock fit solution. The rear divide, very straightforward, very easy. Like no issues there at all. You could just screw with self-tapping screws through. Piece of piss. The bench though was pain in the arse, but it's in basically. So yeah, this side, tripping over things. I think this is as good as I can do it. So I may tidy it up a little more than this, but you can see here, like we've got our hole through the carpet there, and all our wiring to the fuel pump is kind of going under the front there. And I drilled a hole here through to get to the tank to tidy it up that way. But yeah, we are done. So I'll just get a bit of footage now of it up close so you can see final result in more detail. But that is it. Thank you for bearing with me and for watching as always. And on to the next video, which for me will be the carbon fibre boot lid install. Already started work on it. You can probably just about see down there, not there, down there is the new boot lid. But yeah, that is it for now.